Karen tries to reserve twice the seats at Barnes and Noble. Not on my watch, Karen. There's something uniquely peaceful about a quiet afternoon in the cafe at my local Barnes and Noble in Texas. It's not a huge place, just enough for about 30 people if it's full, which it often is, especially on weekends. A few small tables dot the floor, mostly tucked in clusters away from the windows, but there's also a prized row of 4 counter stools by the front, right across from the barista station. These counter spots are gold, prime people watching, great light, and an easy exit when you're done. I'm a bit of a Barnes & Noble regular. I know when to arrive if I want a good seat, especially one near the windows. That particular day, I'd timed it perfectly. I snagged a lovely 2-seater right by the window and settled in with my coffee and a small stack of magazines. From my spot, I had a clear view of the coveted counter seating directly ahead, and I was quite content not to be squished in there this time. That's when I noticed the trouble brewing. At the counter, a tall, stylish-looking woman in her 50s had claimed 2 stools, one for herself and one, presumably, for the teenage girl who was wandering around the store nearby. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that she had placed her purse and what looked like 2 backpacks on the remaining stools, essentially claiming all 4 seats. I watched as a couple approached the counter and looked hopefully at the empty stools. But before they could sit, the woman smiled politely and said, "Sorry, those are taken." The couple looked a bit confused, but walked away. Minutes later, the daughter returned and the woman looked pleased, like she'd successfully defended her territory. It wasn't a one-off. A second couple came in, paused near the counter, and got the same treatment. "Taken," she repeated. Meanwhile, the girl continued to wander the store, not even using her seat. I've seen my fair share of cafe entitlement, but this was next level. That's when I decided I'd seen enough. When a third couple arrived, an older couple with a relaxed, down-to-earth vibe, I decided to intervene. They looked a bit put out as they were turned away from the counter again, so I waved them over and offered up the other seat at my table. After they sat, I explained the situation, how the woman had been claiming all 4 stools, despite only needing 2, and how others had already walked away. They were clearly irritated but had the kind of good-natured attitude that said they weren't afraid of a little confrontation. Without hesitation, they stood back up, walked the 10 feet over to the counter, and began moving the bags. Karen immediately perked up. "Those seats are taken," she said with a forced smile. The couple calmly replied that they'd be happy to move if the rightful owners came back, but since the seats were currently empty, they were going to sit, and they did, just like that. Karen, visibly stunned, huffed and grabbed her bags from the remaining stools. She didn't say much, just rearranged her belongings, and sat back down with a sour expression. The daughter came back shortly after, and there was a quiet but clearly annoyed conversation between them. It wasn't loud, but the tension was obvious. From my table, I watched it all unfold like live theater. The couple sipped their drinks, relaxed and unfazed, while Karen sat stewing in the fact that her little territory grab had been undone by 2 people who simply weren't buying into the social bluff. Eventually, Karen and her daughter packed up and left. No scene, no final comment, just a defeated exit. As they left, the couple turned to me, smiled, and gave a little thumbs up. I returned it with a grin.